Welcome to the Grief and Belief podcast, where we share stories of hope. Thank you for joining us. We hope this powerful story will help you feel God's love for you today.
Welcome to another episode of the Grief and Belief podcast. I'm David Mickelson.
And I'm Kori Andrews.
And Kori, I'm really excited today because we have one of your friends, somebody you've been looking forward to getting to sharing with the world for some time, and so I'm excited for Cindy to be on this this episode and to be able to talk about her son Connor, and maybe Kori, you can introduce Cindy and how you know her.
Yeah, we were just reminiscing on how we initially met. We were in the same stake when my family and I lived in Springville, Utah. Cindy and I were in the same stake, and I think we were initially connected. Cindy just reminded me through Brock Richardson, which is one of somebody that we've interviewed on our podcast. I think he was episode 3, and we love Brock, and he is such a connector of people, and so glad that he connected us, and then we just kind of ran into each other in the stake in different callings in different areas, and also around town, and just the more that I've interacted with Cindy and heard her story with Connor, the more I've just been impressed with her and her husband Greg and their goodness. And so I am so excited for our audience to have the opportunity to learn more about Connor today and his incredible story and the incredible missionary that he was, and also for you to get to know Cindy, because I think she has a lot that she's going to share that will be uplifting and helpful. So thank you, Cindy. Thank you so much for being willing to let us interview you today.
Thanks.
Yep. In fact, today we're going to talk about Cindy's son, Connor, who passed away as a missionary in 2014, if I'm remembering my dates correctly. And she's going to talk about a theme, which is today's challenge is tomorrow's testimony, which is just when she brought that up, I thought I've already fallen in love with the idea. And so we're excited for Cindy to share about that. Cindy, why don't we have you take a moment and just share a little bit about yourself?
Technically, I'm a convert. I joined the church when I was 9. My grandparents joined just after I was born. 9 years before, and grew up in Ohio, went on a mission to California, and then came home and tried to, work things out as to what I was going to do with the rest of my life, and decided that trying to find someone by just going to BYU, no, not doing that, not going to Rexburg. I'm going to stay here in Ohio. And of all things, Greg, who had served his mission in Ohio, decided to come back to go to school, and that's when we met. And so started dating, and he asked me to marry him, and I said yes. And then he said, well, where do you want to get married? And I said, Washington, D.C. And the answer shocked him a little bit. And I said, it's just Washington, D.C. or nothing. So you decide. And if you've ever been back to the Washington, D.C. temple, you might understand why. And the fact that that was the first temple built east of the Mississippi back in the day. And I was old enough to contribute building funds to that back in the day when you were able to send money in. And yes, I'm very old. So, you don't do that anymore now.
Cool.
Send money in for the building of a temple, but back in the day we did. So I do lots of genealogy, which you kind of scoped out, and I do a lot of cross stitch, and I still have a part-time job, and I work for Brian's Auto Supply here in town, which is a Napa store, and I drive to Salt Lake. I used to do it twice a day, now it's just once, and I lift heavy auto parts and put them in the back of the truck and drive back and forth to Salt Lake every day.
Wow. Which mission did you serve in, Cindy, in California?
In the San Jose mission.
Okay.
Which included San Francisco, and that was back in the day where they actually did a, not ensign, but the next one down. for the kids, the youth. They did an article in
like
there that,
New Era.
yes, they did an article. We really do have missionaries in San Francisco because a lot of people didn't, with the lifestyle there, didn't think. So they came out and did a few things. I never served in San Francisco, but went there a few times on P-Day and had a great time. Loved the area and loved the people.
Oh,
Totally a different world than what I knew in Ohio, for sure.
yeah.
Very
Yeah.
small town in Ohio.
Right.
So,
Well, we were mission neighbors then. I served in the Roseville mission, so I was kind of close to you there.
and
Uh,
I'm gonna butcher this, but didn't you study Hmong? Is that
that
the
that
language?
that good
That just popped into
memory.
my eye track. Well, no, I don't have a good memory, but that
That's
stuck in my head.
awesome.
What is Hmong? And that's
Yep.
why it stuck. Yeah.
That's fun.
So
Yep. I
I
speak
I
Hmong
spoke
now.
English,
There's a lot of that there too. Yep.
back East English, but I was exposed to Filipino and Tongan and Samoan and Spanish, and I had no idea that that many cultures. You know,
Yeah. Well, since we're
it,
talking about a missionary today, I love that we're talking about missions. David, where did you start? Tell everybody about
Oh,
your mission real quick.
yeah. I don't know that I've talked that much about it. I went to the Texas San Antonio mission. I was a Spanish speaking missionary. It's been 25 years since I was a missionary now. So it's one of the greatest experiences of my life. I'm thankful every day for my mission experience. Can't wait to go back again.
Yeah.
awesome. How
Well, I'll
many
have to see.
missionaries did you have in your mission? You guys both, like the total number of missionaries. How many were in your missions at the time? Do you know?
Ooh, I don't know. I'd guess maybe between 150 and 200, but I don't know. Yeah.
There are only
Remember,
5 or 6 other Hmong missionaries, but then
right?
we were with a whole mission of I think 150 or 160. But yeah, I'll have to see how I can sneak in some Hmong into the podcast one of these days.
Okay, cool.
No,
Say Connor and Mong.
Connor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
No.
awesome.
Well, that's fun. Thank you for letting us get to know you a little bit better. And yeah, I guess on that note, let's get to know Connor a little bit more. Tell us a little bit about him, his story, his life, maybe a funny story or two, to help us get to know who Connor was.
So he was the fourth child, fourth boy. The other three are 10, 8, and 6 years older than Connor. And so a lot of people assumed when we found out we were going to have Connor that he was a surprise child, and he wasn't. He was a surprise. It wasn't a surprise. Um, and we thought maybe we could get away with having a little girl. That's not what happened. Um, but we talked to the boys and said, "Would you like to have a little sibling?" And all of them said no, didn't want a little sibling at all. And when it came to time for him to be delivered, it happened a little too soon, by about 2 weeks. And there's a portion in childbirth where if it's earlier than 2 weeks, sometimes it's even safer. But right around the 2 weeks is that final lung production thing going on. And that's the time Connor was born, and he wouldn't breathe. And
Oh,
so he was in an incubator in intensive care for 10 days. And
wow.
his brothers got to come in and see him. And that's when the bond happened. And the bond was unbelievable between all of them. Um, the oldest would come home from school, throw his backpack. This is after he got out of the hospital. Throw his backpack down and say, "Where's my baby?" He wanted his baby. So the three of them had different relationships with him, but we were lucky to keep him. And we look back on his death and think, we got to keep him for 19 years. We didn't think we were going to get to keep him at all. So, yeah, 19 years, that's pretty good, I guess.
As he grew up, what was he passionate about? What did he like? Yeah, tell us a little bit about that.
Um, he wanted to go to school where his brother did, which is Universal Technical down in Arizona, which he's a semi truck mechanic, well, technician. He's now what I call the pit boss down at Condi Construction. So he works in the, I call it the pit where all the vehicles are. His oldest brother is a lawyer down in Arizona. He works on the death penalty cases, and his next, the second brother is, he just changed jobs, same thing, but he's a CEO of a auto repair company. So that means myself and two of the brothers are in auto repair or auto delivery or whatever. We're all in the auto business. Did that answer your question, or I go left of center? I don't remember. You
What
wanted to
about
know about Connor.
also, yeah, a little more about Connor. We want to know about him.
So he was just the sweetest little boy. Never really gave us any trouble. And except for once, this is the funny maybe story I could tell. He worked at Taco Bell here in town. He he lied to me and told me that he was going to the dance. And he was going to a dance, but there wasn't a dance that night. He just decided to go on a date. And I'm like, when I, so when the girl came to the door and said, you know, I left my phone in Connor's car, which was Dad's car. And I went, well, can't you call the other kids and see if it's in their car? I didn't quite understand what she was saying. So I thought, you just follow me over to Taco Bell. We're going to talk to Connor. And he opened the door, and the look on his face is, oh my God, Mom busted. And they had decided to go on a date on a day that was not the dance because they neither one could go to the dance on the day the dance happened. And said, well, we're going to have to talk to Dad because this is you're 16, 17 at the time. I'm like, not be doing this single dating thing. And so, but his face was priceless when he came to the door because it was midnight, you know. He went to go back to work to clean up, and so he's a very responsible kid that way. And you know, all kids make mistakes or just make the wrong choice, but we made all the boys pay for mistakes, and that was just one of the funnies that would happen to him because he was a good kid. He didn't do bad things, just did boy things, I guess is what it was that he did. But he liked to fix and repair cars, and so when Greg come home one day and he was fixing the brakes, and on this Camry that he had, you have to take the back seat out and take the shocks from the inside of the car out, you know, into the inside, the interior. And Greg came home and said, what is he doing? And I said, I don't know, but he says that he can look at this YouTube video and figure it out, and he was going to do it. And he's been bugging me for 36 hours straight, and I'm done. Just let him do it. And then his brother, Brandon, who is the Condi construction guy, I said, if he screws anything up, well, we can get Brandon to fix it. And you know, he didn't. He would figure out how to fix. He bought computers, fixed and repaired them to earn extra money for his mission. He just was a doer, and just a good kid, you know. His brother said of him, and we didn't know this till the funeral, that they never had an argument with him because he wouldn't engage in an argument with them. Now he would with me if he thought he was right in the case of this fixing Dad's car. He would argue till I just threw my hands up and go, just whatever, do it. I don't care. Just go fix Dad's car. So he was just very persistent and a good kid.
Sounds like a great young man. Yeah, doing boy things, but also doing good things. And tell us a little bit about his mission and or his mission call, maybe, and what that was like. And then what was his mission like for him?
So his mission call came in October, and which, you know, when we heard where he was going, which was Taiwan Taipei, we were all kind of shocked because the oldest two stayed in the States. The third boy didn't go on a mission, and and I served missions within the States. Greg served in Ohio. As I said, he was there on his mission. I didn't know him because I was in California on mine. But here's this kid going to go to Taiwan. Like, we just didn't comprehend it. Now, he did take Chinese in high school, but that's not the same as learning Mandarin. Mandarin's a little harder. Plus, the words don't, you probably know this being on a Spanish mission or speaking Hmong. Regular speaking words are different than church words. So it doesn't, even though you think you've got this, yeah, I know Spanish really well.
Yeah.
To actually use it is a different experience.
Right.
So he was, I think, the 8 weeks in the MTC or whatever that is. And then he was with his first companion for, was it 12? Yeah, 12 weeks. And then he got his second companion and was with him for 3 weeks when he passed away. And it was him and his companion who both died from carbon monoxide. So go ahead.
Walk us through just kind of in detail that experience as a missionary. I think it's probably something every mom in their heart and probably every dad, but is concerned about happening. Like maybe a little fear of sending a missionary out is something, is the thing that happened to you, maybe a little bit.
Not at
But maybe,
all. No, I had one man ask me in part of my job in Salt Lake, well, why do you send your kids out of the country, and why do you want to do that? They're not going to earn that kind of money getting home. And I looked at him and I went, are you kidding me? I'm not sending my boy on a mission so he can come home and have earning money. I didn't understand. Anyway, it was just one of those things where we were excited for him to go. We never worried about, how do I want to say this? We never worried about his safety because I've had a friend serve in Taiwan 30 some years before that, and it's a safe country. The only thing we kind of worried about was, of course, weather. The typhoons and not tornadoes so much as typhoons. And
hurricanes.
Tsunamis. Yeah. We didn't worry about him. Carbon monoxide is a common way to pass away in Taiwan if you don't know how to protect yourself, which was kind of unique because his companion probably should have known as he was a Taiwan native. But his companion was, from what I understand, in the shower or at least partly clothed in the bathroom, and Connor was still fully clothed in the other room. And I guess the tradition in Taiwan is that you take a shower at night because they don't have deodorant over there. I can't imagine, but so you take a shower at night and get all the smell from you off of you from the day. So plus they didn't call in their nightly call-in routine. And by morning, when the sister missionaries were supposed to meet them at whatever appointment was supposed to be going on, they weren't there either. So an alarm went out to the mission president, and he went to the apartment and took the APs with him. But once they got in the door, told them to go away, just to protect them from the visual that he was seeing. So,
I assumed that carbon monoxide poisoning usually happened while people were sleeping, but that's not the case. This happened while they were awake.
Not to be too graphic, but his autopsy showed 45% carbon monoxide in his blood, and we're supposed to have about normally 3 for survival. So it was quick, overwhelming, and not even enough to get out of the room. It must have been massive. We don't really know all the details, but for us as parents, a comfort knowing that there was no pain, there was no murder, there was no one to blame, there was no, none of that. Just, they were, and the night before, he had had his district leader or his own leader sleeping in the apartment with him. But it wasn't supposed to be him and Connor, it was supposed to be Connor and his companion.
Wow. Wow.
At least in our mind.
Yeah, but also so sudden, right? Like you don't,
Yeah.
he's been out for 6 months, still fairly new missionary, and then to maybe tell us a little bit about that. How did you find out what had happened?
So I think I put a little that background, and that's probably what you're interested in. To even go further, just a tad back earlier that day, and I don't know if this happened to the two of you, but our day wasn't right that day. In that Greg and I don't argue much or whatever, but there was an argument, and he decided to take a nap. I decided, without shame, the second child knowing, he had called and said, "You want to go to the park with us and play with the grandkids?" And I'm like, "Yeah, sure, get me out of the house." And we went into the park and played and did whatever. I didn't tell him what was going on. But there were just other things that weren't right that day. It just wasn't right. And we usually go to bed at 9, watch a show for an hour, study a little bit. And we have a different dog now, but the one in the picture that I sent you, the golden retriever, that's the one that started having seizures a year before Connor went on his mission. So he was medicated and not seizing for the whole time Connor was gone. And yet that night, he had a seizure at like 10:30. And of course, we spent some time with him, getting him comforted and, under control, remedicated, and hopped in bed. And then there was a knock on the door, the phone rang, and then knock on the door and the doorbell. I mean, all of it went off at the same time. They were urgently trying to get to us. We would have been dead asleep had that not happened with Sam, but Sam and Connor were tightly connected. He absolutely insisted that I take that picture that I sent to you for his mission call. I'm like, I don't know if dogs are supposed to be in a mission call picture, submission. He said, "I'm not taking the picture unless you get Sam put in there." So the knock at the door was Bishop Boyer and President Rapier, who came to tell us. And what happened, I think, have you ever done any other missionary deaths in this podcast?
No.
I would be really interested to know, because I think the church or someone instructed what the bishop and what the stake president should say exactly to us. It wasn't rehearsed, but the word that they used was that, they first told us that his companion was deceased. Greg's mind went to, what's wrong with Connor? What happened to Connor? Like he'd been injured somehow. My mind went to, oh, the poor baby's so sad, he's going to have to come home, But they said, no, he's deceased. I mean, it was like a real, not a script. It wasn't at all like that, but it was definitely, they wanted probably them to use some words. Some instruction might have been given before they came to our home of how to let us know this, so that we wouldn't be confused or, and we sat there for a few hours, called the two boys who were still left here in Utah. One was coming from Eagle Mountain. The other one was coming from Alberta, in south of us. And they both rushed here. Shane nearly got a speeding ticket. And the cop just said something to him. He says, "Look, just give me the ticket. I got to get to my mom and dad's house. My brother just died. My brother, the missionary." That's another story that later they were up at the canyon. I don't know how to explain this without taking a left-hand turn, but they were up in the canyon together shooting guns in that normal spot where you can shoot guns, because that's what they like to do. And this was before Connor's body came home, and that same cop showed up that canyon And he was able to go, I know you weren't lying now, because he'd heard the news by then, but he kind of thought, this kid might be lying about speed.
Right. Right.
So, so I took a left turn. Where was I supposed to go back to? I'm sorry.
So your sons came in, you were there, you just found out,
Yeah. And
and
President Rapier and the bishop were still there, but our instruction was to call Brian, who lived in Arizona, and this was the week of his um, taking the bar exam.
wow.
Was it the bar exam or passing college, passing the last? I don't remember. One of the two. A big week for him, and he had his phone turned off, and I'm calling and calling and calling, and finally he called us back, and so we were able to tell him what happened. But yeah, not fun. But he did get to spend time with Connor. We sent Connor down for him to, play in Arizona. That's where the oldest one lives. With Connor for about a week before his, well, not a week before his mission, for about a week. And it was just, I don't know, a couple weeks before Connor left on his mission. So they have a picture of themselves together on one of the mountains down there, Camelback Mountain, down in Arizona, together. So there were some precious things and events that happened for each of them with him before all this happened.
And I remember hearing from President Rapier him talking about that, getting that call and knowing that he had to come and tell you guys. And I can't imagine, yeah, that experience. And then for you to hear that way, I'm sure that, and then having to tell everyone. That's almost one of the hardest things when something like that, especially unexpected, happens, is to then tell the story again and again and again while you're living it.
Well,
And
both of
so,
you have had to do that, correct?
yeah.
Tell the story over again and again and again. It's kind of healing, but it's hard because you're reliving that every time. And for us, it was very public as well. So we began to learn that we were not going to leave the house unless, number one, we were together, me and my husband, or unless it was out after 11 o'clock at night when nobody's out going to be grocery shopping at Walmart, right? That's not true. Because
Yep.
people would recognize us because they asked us if we wanted to do a news broadcast. And we agreed because I thought, well, if Connor can be a missionary, so can we. So we'll do this and we'll see how that turns out. What that did was put our faces out there for people to recognize us, which was not what we were intending. So when we went down to pay a bill at the city place, the city building, oh, that's who you are. And then people would come out from behind the counter and it was sweet, but overwhelming.
Mhm.
Really sweet.
And
But
yeah, and all the time, everywhere you went.
yes. And no
Yeah.
matter if it was after 11 o'clock at night. So the other
Yeah.
thing Greg and I did was make a point of not opening letters that were coming to our house unless we were together either, because it was too hard to do. I did open a letter and it was a good letter, but it was by myself and I went, not again. We have to do this together. We can't get a letter or whatever and do it by ourselves. It just wasn't a good thing.
So, Cindy, can you talk a little bit about, you had mentioned in our pre-call that it was about 3 weeks from the time Connor passed away to when his body came from Taiwan to Utah. I think we've interviewed at least one other person that's coming to mind at the moment, was Jenny Taylor, who had a similar experience. Her husband passed away and died in combat overseas, and there was a wait there. Can you talk a little bit about what you experienced in those 3 weeks while all you want to do is to have your son there with you, and you've got to wait and you can't make it happen really much faster than it is?
It was quite hard because every turn that we took seemed like, oh, he's going to come home today. Like that, when we were notified, it was Friday night, on a Friday night at midnight, so Saturday early morning, and we never went back to bed. And because we knew what LDS people are like, it's like they gather. And I said, we're going to have people on our front yard early in the morning. So I said, no, we're just going to stay up. We'll just deal with it. And so that's what happened. They came to the front yard and we gathered with everyone that is imaginable. Again, this is that brain problem I said. So the question you asked was what, David, again?
Yeah, just kind of what was your experience like waiting those 3 weeks before Connor came, before you were able to be with Connor again?
Okay, so the first 2 days, Saturday and Sunday, were a lot of visiting, and then more visiting. Our door was never not being open for someone or something, or which was a good thing because it kept our mind busy. We also had some time to really plan what to do with the funeral. But it's also a lot of torture because come Monday, so we did that Saturday and Sunday thing, and come Monday, Bishop Boyer came to the door and said, we need to go down to the funeral home now and start planning. And I went, oh, so he's going to come home tomorrow, like Tuesday. No. And that was the hard thing. Never knowing, is today the day he's going to come home? Is today the day he's going to come home? Is today the day? And it was actually the third Saturday. So 3 Saturdays from that first, 2 more Saturdays after that, that they said, no, he's going to come home. And he got to the airport in California a little too late. So they kept his body there and put him in a funeral home and then shipped him home the next day. So he actually went through 3 funeral homes, one in Taiwan, one in California, and one here in Utah. And then we waited a week and had his funeral. And of course, a lot of that was, I don't know, we had a very public thing, so it wasn't just LDS people. And there were people online going, well, why don't they have a funeral for him? Because we don't have his body yet. They didn't understand. But it took him literally 3 weeks to come home, and then on the 4th week we had his funeral. So I hope that is what you were looking for.
Yeah, no, thank you. Thanks for sharing that and kind of helping us understand that perspective. Um, was there anything else with how that happened, how that went down that was uh, maybe even for you personally that was hard or that you struggled with or that you had to wrestle with a little bit after him passing and maybe even after the funeral and how when everything kind of started to die down? What were kind of your personal struggles with grief?
Um, Actually, other than just missing the baby, because he was the baby. I don't. He was 19, but sorry, he's a baby.
Yeah.
And the baby. Um, we went to church that first Sunday, and what came out of my mouth was like, I can't believe you just said that. Somebody said something to me, and I said they were going to have a meeting with all the youth in the ward. And I just said, tell them we're content.
Mm.
That's not something that, where that came from. And it held true through the rest of, this last 11 years. So it was last month that it was his 11th year being on the other side. Um, though I was content, that didn't mean I was happy or, okay, he's gone. We're going to move on. Not any of that. It was just, Heavenly Father knows what he's doing, and he doesn't make mistakes, as Greg pointed out in his talk at the funeral. So what do we do with this? There have been people in our family that have been angry, because that's part of grief, is to deal with angry. I never had that, and I don't know why, but I was grateful I didn't, because I watched people I love be angry. And that was hard to witness. And know that a husband and wife are not going to grieve the same. Your kids are not going to grieve the same. They all have their little journey. I remember with Greg's dad's funeral, how his mom acted, and she didn't want her kids to grieve in front of her. And I went, I don't understand this. This is way before Connor. And so when it came time for me to be the mom, having boys deal with their own grief, we gave him the choice. Do you want to see Connor in the casket or not? And of the three boys left, only two decided not to. Their wives followed suit, and only one wanted to see him in the casket. And then it was a closed casket from there. It wasn't it for us family. We had an open casket viewing, but for the public and the church and all that, it was closed. For what we talked about previous to this, but they did a very nice job with him, and we're very grateful for that, because, like I said, Taiwan is not known for embalming, and he was there 3 weeks. Now, he was kept in a room that was probably refrigerated. I don't really know, but they're used to cremating them right away in Taiwan. That's what they do. And so this is way out of their comfort zone to deal with when this happened for them. So.
Cindy, I know we want to spend the majority of our time talking about today's challenge is tomorrow's testimony. But could you maybe just take a couple of minutes and talk about the picture of Connor that we're displaying, and a little bit about your work with missionaries who have passed away while they've been serving?
Okay. So as a genealogist, I like to document stuff and work on things. And Greg found a website called Find a Grave. And he said, look what I found. And there were about 18 missionaries in there. And I went, oh, well, we don't have a whole lot of money, so I can't do a foundation. I can't do this. But I can go research missionaries who pass away. And so I started doing that and have been working on it for about a year and a half, documenting. And when I came up with 80 names, I thought, that's a lot. Little did I know what I was end up coming up with. So in the midst of that, another missionary died in Taiwan a year after Connor. And we had called them and said, how can we help? What can we protect you from? Because there were some scammers that came out. And when that was all said and done, she had her friend, his name's J.R. Johansson, paint a picture of her son. That was portrait number 3. And then J.R. said, do you know anybody else who's lost a missionary? And she said, yeah, the Thredgolds did. And so Connor was portrait number 4. And J.R. has, with my help and a whole bunch of other people who, through whatever connection they might have, he's now painted 170 portraits, all which are free. And you mentioned Jenny, the military
Taylor.
wife.
Mm-hmm.
He painted her husband for her as well. He
okay.
That's cool.
Yeah. He also has done the Uvalde victims, in the Uvalde, Texas victims. And he's thinking he may do the ones in Michigan with the recent tragedy there. But he does this for no charge to any of the families.
So that's pretty awesome. We will put a link to the virtual cemetery on findagrave.com. We'll put that in the episode notes, so anybody who's interested in looking at that can have access to it. How many missionaries did you end up discovering had passed away during their church service? Roughly.
I want to say just a little over 1,000, almost 1,100, but no, I don't think it's up that high yet. We include a few extras, which are those that have a mission call, but end up, for whatever reason, having a car accident before they get into the MTC, and those that have returned home and passed away within 6 weeks. And if anyone listening to the podcast wants to be able to have a portrait at no cost, we're hoping JR's health is still going to hold up for a little while. But he has said on many KSL and KUTV2 interviews that this is what has kept him alive. He's a Vietnam vet, and he was not supposed to even make it to 2014 when he made, he did Connor's portrait, and now he's done many more. And he and his doctors believe that truly his calling is to stay here and do that for as long as Heavenly Father wants him to.
Well, if anybody's listening, and if anybody's listening who has connections to a family who has a missionary who's passed away, one's likely they might already have one of these portraits. But connect with me and Kori on Grief and Belief podcast on social media, and we'll connect with Cindy and make sure that things are in order there. So with that being said, let's maybe transition to today's challenge is tomorrow's testimony. What does that mean to you, Cindy, and what would you like to share about that?
It's something we found before we did a fireside. And I'm like, this is so awesome. But then I forgot about what I found this morning. Connor has in his scriptures, we found it the day of his funeral, and he has something similar, but it says, our greatest blessings come from our greatest trials. So just a different version of that. And we, like I said, we found that my third son found it in his scriptures. We were looking through the table leading into the funeral, and it was just messages. Both of those are messages saying it's tough, but the compensating blessings that come from the trials are equal or greater to what Heavenly Father's asked us to do. And
I love that. I love that hopeful perspective. Yeah. How have you relied on that?
I've always known that there's going to be the next life. I've got enough of my ancestors I've done temple work and research, genealogy research on, to know that there's the other side. My own grandfather passed away while he was serving a mission down in Brazil in 1967. And my grandmother never said bad things about the church or like, why would this happen to my husband? He died on my birthday. And so to watch her do what she did, I think it was my example of how not to get angry, how not to be, bent out of shape that Connor was taken home. She had done that with a lot of grace, and I was too young to know that until later and appreciate how she had dealt with, he died in Brazil, and his body had to stay in Brazil till they were done with him. Well, in Chile. And no, I take that back. Lima, Peru was where his death certificate was signed. So, that's one of the benefits. And David, you probably know this, and Kori, if you've done enough genealogy to know when you watch your relatives and your ancestors go through trials, it helps you figure out your own.
Yeah, maybe you could take us over these last 11 years and what have been some experiences related to Connor's passing, but that have been strengthening to your testimony.
That Heavenly Father knows our dates, whatever the dates those are. So like I said, my grandfather passed away on my birthday. So every time we lived with my grandma. So every time my birthday came around, there was no mention of Grandpa's passing. Just let's do my birthday. On the 6th anniversary of Connor's death, our oldest son had his first baby, Remy, down in Arizona. Sitting at the computer working, trying to keep my mind off of it. This is the 6th anniversary of his passing. So sad, so tear. And then I look down and Brian's calling. And I'm like, oh my gosh, is this what I think it is? And he called and said, well, the baby's here. And he didn't say anything about Connor's death. And I let him live with that because I wanted him to celebrate his baby's birth. And remembering my grandma didn't make it about her. And then there's another baby that was born on the 7th anniversary, not our family, but missionaries who'd served with Connor, and they named their baby Connor. Greg got to be part of that baby blessing. And then there was on I think it was the 4th anniversary of Connor's funeral, our adopted grandson came into the family. And don't tell me, those are 5 big events. It's not possible that that's a coincidence. It's just not possible.
So it's like, as maybe what I'm hearing is, that date wouldn't mean anything without Connor's passing. And so Connor's passing, coupled with these very special things that are happening, allows you to know that God's working in the details of your life, of other people's life, to kind of help you stay connected to Heavenly Father, to the Savior, to Connor, to maybe as a gift to make it easier to recognize that these things are his hand, because it's on the date. You never forget the date. That we have similar, we have similar experiences that are meaningful to us, that help us remember, oh, this is God doing little things.
I don't think Heavenly Father wants us to sit in pain. And in order to make that happen for us, he gives us these other gifts, the compensation. The Lord giveth and the Lord taketh away. It's just how life is. We can't all live forever. Some people, it's just the funny thing is, we complain about ward boundaries being changed and getting split from this family and that family. And like, well, should we all belong to the Church of Kirtland then? I mean, it's just not possible to just sit in your old way of thinking. You have to, but my biggest thing would be just make sure that you're giving people the permission to grieve the way they need to, instead of, you're not doing it like me. That's a burden you should never try to put on anybody else. They get to grieve their own way.
Love that. Yeah. And that is important to remember, that we are going to grieve differently. And I love that principle of he gives and he takes away, and that is part of life. And you even mentioned that at the beginning when you talked about being grateful for the 19 years that you did get to have with Connor, right? That he gave
Because we
you
didn't think
that.
we were going to have that at all.
Yeah.
Well, we got
Yeah.
19 years. Okay. That
Yeah.
sounds greedy, doesn't it? It's like, we got 19 years. Well, we didn't get 40, but,
Yeah.
be grateful for what you get.
Yeah.
Even if it's, and, you know, I don't remember how old Karen was when she passed away. It wasn't like
Just
only,
38 days. Yeah.
that's hard. And the
Yeah.
same with Ava. Just, I don't know why. I do know where Connor is, but I don't know. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like, I couldn't tell you what Connor's doing today. I remember when Sam passed away, that dog in that picture. He passed away in November, right after Connor did. Um, and Greg knew that he was gone because he was on the bed still instead of on the floor. Greg nudged me and said, Cindy, I think Sam passed away. And I got up and I looked at this precious 12-year-old dog that we dearly loved. And we have a sense of humor here, so take it for what it's worth. But I remember looking to the ceiling going, okay, Connor, thanks so much for coming and getting your dog, and you didn't even wake us up. He actually buried the other dog. So there was a Labrador and a Golden Retriever. The Labrador passed away while Connor was in the MTC, and we sent him, but he actually dug the grave the day before he left because he knew he had cancer and he probably wasn't going to last long. So he dug the first dog's grave. And then he just decided to come get Sam without telling us, and we were not happy about that. Not at all.
Yeah.
So we try to make,
Yeah.
I'm sure that people think, are we nuts for making jokes like this? But it's the only way we've gotten through dealing with some of the stuff. So.
And back to that idea, like, right, like he can give us smiles even through the tears sometimes,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and there's that balance, and we do. I totally get that too. Like we want to keep it all, and that's me. I don't even like change very much, and I keep all the things, and thankfully I have a wife that throws things away. But I feel that too, that I want to keep it all, and it all matters, and it's meaningful to me. But I think that perspective that you talked about of realizing that he is going to continue to give, even though there are things that take away. That's the hope.
Right.
And you even said it, that it will be equal to or even greater than eventually. And I love that we see those, and seeing those dates, and that those were important. Those were little gifts that he continued to give, and that if we can focus on that, then those trials do become our testimonies. Those difficult things that we go through, those unfair things that we go through, they can lead us closer to him. And so I
We
love that
still laugh about
testimony.
this dog we have now because
Mm,
this dog actually was born after Connor passed away
mm,
and went to a different family. And then they couldn't handle him, so we got him. He's 100 pounds of half golden retriever, half farm dog. And he has the farm dog, he has the golden retriever look, but the farm dog skull structure, which those dogs have thicker skulls to deal with cattle. And um, he's been a blessing, absolutely been a
mm,
blessing to us. And we just laugh that if if you saw the picture of a dog in 7-Eleven that Connor took a picture of in Taiwan, he called him Rebel Dog. And he looks a lot like Rebel Dog, this booze dog of ours. Looks a lot like, and he is now 11 years old.
mm.
So we don't know how much longer we'll have him with us. But, you know, those blessings come, and I think some of them, back to the portrait thing, I think Connor has directed JR and I in several ways to find other family members to gift that painting, gift a painting to. Um, it just wouldn't have happened in some cases.
Yeah.
And so I'm thinking that what happens on this side of the veil when y'all gather together and say stuff, it happens on the other side of the veil where they gather and go, I want a portrait for my family. Who do I need to talk to? And they'll
mhm.
go see Connor. He'll get to his mom, and mom will get to JR. It's just this little chain of path that happens that the blessings come for sure.
Well, Cindy, we're so grateful for you being willing to share Connor with us. We've loved getting to know him, seeing his portrait, hearing stories about him. We're thankful for your testimony and what you've taught about today's challenges being tomorrow's testimony. And I think we've all experienced that to one degree or another. And maybe, with that principle in mind, we can kind of transition to our favorite portion of the episode where we ask our last question. Cindy, considering your experience with grief, what do you now believe about Jesus Christ?
Um, I thought I knew a lot about Christ, his mission. So I served a mission. I had a testimony, and it really didn't change, but I think, I don't know what the word is, it became more real after Connor's passing. Our worry about missionaries in Taiwan. Do they really know what they're teaching, this gospel of the atonement and all that Jesus did for us? Do they really understand that? Are they going to get shook by this death? Um, But to now understand it on a level of, I've lost a son, and Heavenly Father had to give up his son. And there's a different level of understanding. It's not a new testimony or a different testimony. It's just a different level of understanding what that means in our life. And I'm grateful for that knowledge now.
Well, thank you so much, Cindy. You've shared such a beautiful message, and we sure appreciate you. And
What?
That's the
Booze want
boy.
to be heard? Yeah, you want to be heard.
Booze knows it's
Yeah.
time to end. So, well, thank you so much for your
Okay.
time, Cindy. We sure appreciate
Thank
you.
you. You guys are awesome. Bless you for all that you do in this grief and belief space, and looking forward to hearing more stories.
Yeah. Thank
Thanks,
you.
Cindy.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Thank you to our incredible guests for sharing their story of hope. If you know someone who might be blessed by hearing this message, please share it with them. We would love it if you would subscribe, rate, and review, and comment on our podcast so others can find it. Be sure to follow us on Instagram and Facebook, as well as join our Grief and Beliefs Facebook group. Thank you to our sponsor, High Five Live Tours, where fun and joy meet on inspiring travel experiences. Special thanks to our producer, Misty Lynn Howard. Check out her history podcast called Faith Ignited. Thank you again for listening, and we'll see you next time.